Can tomatoes have dignity? It might seem almost absurd to discuss whether tomatoes could ever possess dignity. After all, the very concept of dignity conjures up notions of respect, autonomy, intrinsic value. These things are usually reserved for sentient beings. Yet, a recent argument from Francesco Mutti, CEO of one of Italy's most respected canned tomato brands, suggests otherwise. The Financial Times reported Mutti's call to restore the dignity of Italian tomatoes. And on reflection, I think this touches on some interesting issues, much more than just a sentimental plea for the Italian tomato. His claims emerge from mounting concerns about the standards, origins and environmental impact of tomato production, particularly when cheap imports undercut the quality and integrity of European-grown products. In 2021, the United States banned all imports of tomatoes from China's Xinjiang region. The ban reflected growing ethical concerns over labour practices in the region, where reports indicated the use of prison labour in producing tomatoes and other goods. The ban extended beyond fresh produce, covering all tomato derivatives, from seeds to sauces. Mutti has argued that the influx of cheap tomato paste from Xinjiang represents a direct threat to the European tomato industry, which adheres to strict sustainability standards. European growers are often subject to rigorous environmental laws, ensuring their products are grown sustainably and free from unethical practices. Italian farmers, for instance, must comply with tight restrictions on pesticide use, irrigation practices and waste management, all aiming for a lower carbon footprint and minimal environmental impact. These regulations contrast starkly with the lower cost production practices in China, where environmental and labour standards are far less stringent. China denies the specific allegations on labour practices in the Xinjiang region. But even apart from this issue, there is no doubt that Chinese imports are cheaper because they're not produced to the same high EU standards. Some would say that we should have the choice to decide whether we want to buy cheap Chinese imports or higher priced EU local products. They might emphasise that in a cost of living crisis, access to cheap imports is highly desirable. For decades, neoliberal trade policies have promoted global free trade as the pathway to prosperity, often at the cost of local industries and, arguably, dignity. Today, however, global supply chain issues and rising geopolitical tensions are reshaping how countries view economic sovereignty and the role of local production. The tomato industry offers a telling example. Italy's canned tomato sector, with its rich agricultural heritage, has struggled to compete with cheap imports that often circumvent consumer awareness. It's been claimed that this practice has resulted in tomatoes grown and processed in China, marketed deceptively under Italian labels, blended with local Italian products to maintain the made in Italy allure while bypassing Italian standards. The Mutti company dates back to 1869. It really epitomises a model of high quality, locally grown produce that prioritises both quality and sustainability over low-cost mass production. The company's supply chain is designed to reduce CO2 emissions, and they try and ensure that tomatoes travel no more than 100 kilometres from the field to the factory. They claim that this retains peak freshness and flavour. By processing tomatoes within 24 hours of harvest, Mutti can deliver a product that's environmentally friendly and has a shorter traceable journey from vine to can. In this regard, the dignity Mutti speaks of reflects an appeal to a production method that values quality, sustainability, and respect for the land and the people involved in its cultivation. The notion of dignified tomatoes may seem symbolic, yet it encapsulates a broader critique of an economic system that too often commodifies products at the expense of quality and ethical standards. The impact of global competition on Italian tomatoes mirrors wider debates about the role of free trade. The US import ban signifies a shift away from the unchecked flow of goods and the primacy of low prices. For many, this change signals the end of an era where the societal and environmental costs of cheap goods were hidden. Instead, Mutti's vision and his insistence on the dignity of Italian tomatoes, it aligns with a renewed focus on local production at a time when climate concerns and supply chain disruptions are prevalent. Many argue that producing food much closer to home makes both environmental and economic sense, and that it's crucial to support industries dedicated to high standards. Indeed, there's something inherently dignified, even beautiful, about eating food that's been nurtured in the local land. It deepens the connection between the producer and the consumer, and it reminds us of the often forgotten journey our food takes from soil to plate. When we eat locally grown tomatoes, we're supporting not only regional economies, but also a way of farming that respects the land, the product, and the workers behind it. By valuing local production, we might also be restoring a kind of dignity, not only to the tomatoes themselves, but to the food system at large, where quality, ethics, and sustainability are prioritised. The dignity of tomatoes may seem like a fanciful notion, but Mutti's stance does invite us to reconsider how we perceive food in an increasingly commoditised world. Italian tomatoes, grown with care and respect for both the land and the people involved, contrast sharply with products churned out at minimum cost, often in regions that lack environmental and labour protections. By choosing locally sourced, high-quality food, consumers participate in an economy that values more than just the lowest price. They're supporting a vision of dignity, a reminder that even a humble tomato carries a story worth protecting. As the pressures of global markets intensify, defending the Italian tomato industry against cheaper, less sustainable imports may not only preserve jobs and traditions, but also uphold a vision of food production that respects the dignity of all involved: plants, human beings, and the planet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.